And we want to talk about, of course, 3D site management. More precise, we want to talk about the combination of lean construction and building information modeling. And we're going to split the presentation or the webinar in two halves. Before we start, we want to ask whether you have heard of specter automation before. And while you be answering the question, I have someone who also joins me today and, of course, wants to give a little introduction about himself. So, Manu, happy to have you with me.
Hey, everybody. I'm sure a couple of you might know me already. I'm Emmanuel. I'm one of the co-founders of Ollie, and I deal a lot at Spectre with our customers from abroad. So all the way from North America to New Zealand and everything in the middle of that. Yes, really happy to be here today with you. And I'm going to take you on a tour how we implement BIM and Lean actually in our software. So we're going to have some nice practical insights. And yeah, really looking forward to talking with you guys. And if you have specific questions afterwards, also after the webinar, always feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'll be happy to help you as good as I can.
100%. Thanks so much, Manu. And yeah, we're going to start with a little overview about what is Spectre actually. As mentioned, we're based in Cologne, Germany, 3 p.m. our time. Roughly 30 Spectres are with us each and every day working on transforming the construction industry. And we are doing this with roughly 250 projects all over the globe. And yeah, those projects are based in multiple countries, from North America to New Zealand, Singapore, Japan, Middle East, as well as DACH region. And the projects that we usually support with is basically everything from office spaces to hospital projects to big development and projects like in Middle East. So quite diverse range, mostly focused on shell construction. At least this is where we are originating from. But of course, we're also helping you guys out with fit-out projects. And to give you maybe just like a theoretical background of BIM and Lean in, let's say, 6 to 7 minutes, I try to be quite concise here. We're going to start with what BIM actually is, because today BIM and Lean is mostly something separated. It's mostly two different departments. It's mostly one thingy that is more digital, BIM, one that is more analog, Lean. So we are seeing like two separate worlds here and asking really the question, okay, why is this the case? So to start with what BIM is today, I think what pops up in all of our heads is a 3D model, right? And the assumption somewhat is the more detailed this model is, the better we do BIM. But that's in the end what BIM is not really about, to be honest. Because if we look at the definition, I just want to highlight 3 things, which means BIM is a collaborative way of effective management of information from the earliest concept through operation, right? So in the end, it's about information, it's about data, and having the right data in place when certain decisions need to be taken, maybe in the early phase of a project or through the operation phase in facility management. So when we look at what BIM is really used for these days, then we see that in the top 4 categories, it's all about planning, basically. It's a 2D, 3D design coordination, it's clash detection. So if a pipe is modeled to run through, I don't know, like a ceiling, we have this design review and approval process. And of course, with this involved, there's a lot of files being shared in CDs, Dropboxes, or the similar. So of course, you can answer the question right now, do you already use 3D models? Yeah, during pre-construction or execution also helps us to get a better understanding of like whom we are dealing with today. But we want to actually move in, okay, what is BIM all about? What should be the target of it? And to start like with the fundamental process or concept behind BIM, we were looking at the acronym, we realized, okay, it's really about information in the end, right? And this information is, I think, quite good represented if we take the example of a car, right? So car is BIM, then the facade or the body of that car would be like the 3D model. So what we're actually seeing. But the value and what, you know, what differentiates a Porsche from a Citroen or some other car is really like the engine, right? So it's about the data that is incorporated in that 3D model. And last but not least, and equally important, the driver or the user of that data who can, you know, derive better decisions from that data and not just having the facade or the body. And there's two fundamental concepts centered around LODs, level of developments. I don't want to go into detail here, but just want to share the insight that, of course, information consists of two different categories. The first one is being the LOG, the level of geometry. So the level of the dimensions, if you want to call it that way, of, let's say, a door, a ceiling, a wall. So area, volume, height, width, etc. And secondly, there's the LOI, the level of information, so the semantic data that is included behind the door, the wall, the ceiling, like, I know, fire protection data or environmental data, etc., etc. And the second important concept is that those LOD levels are categorized into LOD from like 100 to 500. And basically, you can say the more detailed objects one have, the higher the level of geometry. And then secondly, the higher the level of information incorporated behind the door. Think of environmental data, fire protection, etc. The higher is the level of information. And both combined determine the level of development. So if we want to think about BIM, I just want to convey the message, okay, it's about connecting information, making structured information easily accessible by the user, the driver of the car. So we shouldn't think about just 3D models, but rather about a database. And now to make it also really quick for lean construction, we look at the example of the LPS, the last planner system. What is it today? Again, what pops up in our head is people using sticky notes, right? Using sticky notes on the job site each and every day to basically organize who is doing what. In a sense, lean construction again refers to a collaborative way of transparent processes passed on for further processing. So you could also say it's the same definition, more or less, than BIM is, which was collaborative way, effective information management along the entire project lifecycle. And that's more or less the same, actually, how we define lean construction, quite interestingly. And in the end, particularly the last planner system is about production planning, which is a short cyclical planning, mostly, let's say, each week or the next 4 to 6 weeks. It's quite detailed and it's collaborative, meaning multiple trades or subcontractors are working together with the site team. And secondly, the outcome of that should be to eliminate restrictions, to increase reliability, and to achieve learnings from week to week and from project to project. So, and then there's different processes, right? From starting like high level, what is our process actually having like a milestone phase plan, and you could pin it down to like a 60 preview, a weekly planning, and then maybe even like risk and action management, and of course the KPIs or like the analysis of what has been achieved. But I don't want to go in detail here. I just want to firstly ask, have you implemented any sort of lean processes yet in your company? And then also come to like the conclusion. So what should the LPS or the lean construction target be? Well, if we look at the typical information, that's then going to be like my last slide and transition to the practical part of Manu. If we look at the information needed really for a last planner system, there is 5. We have, of course, the task itself, the predecessor task, and then some sort of geometrical information like the floor or the room, as well as the material. And if we look at this information needed from a data perspective, we realize, okay, the task is nothing else than like the IFC building element plus material, right? So let's say the concrete of a certain wall. If we look at the floor and room, the geometrical information, we realize, okay, that's typically the IFC building story. and the IFC space. So information, really basic information included in any 3D model. The material is the material, and the predecessor, okay, well, that's a dependency that needs to be manually like integrated. So that is something that needs to happen on the fields, or at least in earlier construction processes. But everything else is really, in the end, can be automated by using the data that we already have in our 3D model. And to talk about this intersection, we just want to look into how we have dealt this combination of building information modeling and lean construction within Spectre. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, maybe give like a couple of seconds for you guys to digest and also to ask questions if there's any about this theoretical part. And then we will be moving on with the practical insight of how Spectre combines BIM and Lean. And of course, you're always welcome to ask any questions or anything that is of most interest for you guys.
Perfect. So now let's get started with the really exciting part of today's webinar. Gonna look into the practice. How do we actually do it? How do we actually combine Lean and BIM? You're probably gonna have a bunch of questions while I walk you through how it can be done. Feel free to just write those questions in the chat, and then maybe Oliver or some of my colleagues can jump in and answer them on the go, or we have them on record to talk about it at the end. So let's get started. I'm sharing my screen now, and you can basically see the software, Spectre Automation. So it's a cloud-based software, right? You just log in through your browser. Anybody can do it. Super simple. And that's in general what the tool has been built for, right? For the use of a foreman, superintendent, project manager. Really easy to use. That was one of the key priorities. And what we see directly, we're looking at the tool and we're directly seeing the 3D model. So BIM is already there. But how do we now combine this with our lean principles? How can we actually enable things like this short-term planning, the last planner system directly from the model? And how do we actually use the information from BIM to simplify lean, make it more structured and make it more efficient? So one really cool thing that you can do in Spectre here is that you have the model, and if I click on one of these slabs here, for example, and I activate what we call like our task list. This is kind of like a list of the post-its that you would probably stick on your wall in the lean context. This is generated by Spectre. So in general, in our task list here on the right side, I have basically a bunch of pre-generated post-its that we will need to stick and that we need to plan throughout our project lifecycle. And the nice thing is, since we have the BIM model, and since you can do a bunch of work preparation in Spectre to make sure everything's set up correctly, we can actually pre-generate most of the tasks that need to be planned and add a lot of information to them. So for example, if I select this slab, I can see it automatically boils down to house number A1, upper floor 4, semi-prefabricated concrete slab. So this is information that's taken from the model in combination with our work preparation. And it even shows me I need to do 3 specific construction steps that we need to plan as part of our short-term interval planning. Specifically, we need to lay and align the prefab, we need to add reinforcement, and we need to do the final concrete pouring. The nice thing here is that since I have all the BIM data, I can actually go even further. Not only have the steps, but I can even add additional things like calculate the quantity. I can add effort values in Spectre, so it automatically calculates the required labor hours. For example, here it recommends for laying and aligning. Since we have 3 people set up in our resources, we're likely going to need about 4.7 days, right? That's just some orientation, but it already shows the power of having this data-driven approach, even in a dynamic system as the last planner system. And the nice thing is now that I have this detailed information. I could even add like a bunch more information here. It's really up to the user to customize their own system. Now I can very easily also do my planning, set the specific task to specific days. So the easiest approach is I just click on plan and I select the days. So for example, laying and aligning, we're going to go here beginning, end of November, maybe 3 days laying and aligning, then reinforcement, same time, maybe going from Wednesday to Thursday. And then we're going to have our concrete pouring on the Friday as final task right here. So that's just a very, very easy, straightforward way to plan this. But of course, now you're saying like, where's the visualization? Where's the reference, right? I want to see what I've planned. I want to understand, like I have my post-it board in mind. So where's that? And that's a nice thing. Even though I just directly plan from here, from the model, from my task list, it automatically also reflects in what we often call our look-ahead plan, right? Because the software Spectre is not specifically tailored to one methodology, right? You can do a less planner, you can also do attack planning, you can also do any type of kind of look ahead interval planning or even longer term planning, right? It's totally up to the user to decide on their own methodology. And I think that's in general very important to understand. We don't show you how you should manage your construction site or anything, right? You have your own abilities and your own systems to do this, but our software allows you to replicate this in a very smart, digital, and especially with structured information way. So the tasks I just planned, you can see they popped up right here actually. So we have lay and align, reinforce, and so on. And to prove you that they actually came directly from this list, I'm just going to click on our return button up here or hit Command Z on my keyboard to undo my planning. And I can show you how we can directly also plan it right into this list, right? So this slab we were looking at, I can just pick the days and now plan the tasks very easily like this. And even if I don't even want to click on the slab, I can also just directly start from my task list up here, find the right location. So building number 1A, we're currently in the 4th floor, and I see everything that needs to be done. We have attic, we have masonry walls, right? We have prefabricated concrete stairs, and we also have the slab we were talking about, right? You can see it's being highlighted as well while I'm hovering over these elements. So it's super interactive, super connected, and super, super easy to understand because it's exactly what I need to do, already generated for my end user. And then again, same principle. I just pick the days I want to plan, maybe 3 days of reinforcement, and then the concreting on Friday. And there we go. I've done my plan. Very easy for a specific split. And the nice thing is, of course, all of this can now be beautifully visualized, right? So if I activate, for example, my project object status, I can see the slab that we planned up here. It is now turned blue. I can see, okay, we have done planning for it. I can see the information when what was planned, on which day do we have it, and everything is connected. So also if I click on this post-it, the slab is highlighted and so on. Finally, at the end, of course, I want to track what have we achieved, where were delays, you know, what percentage completion have we achieved, which trade was on track, who wasn't. For this, I can simply change the status to done. You will also see how the progress is reflected directly in the model. I can set multiple tasks, of course, to done. Or if I want, I can also easily delay tasks, right? So maybe even multiple at once, right? Let's say both of these tasks need to be delayed. I'm just going to hit delay. Maybe we had missing execution plans, right? Happens apparently. And we want to maintain the sequence, right? Really important. We want to keep the same flow going. Maybe we have to go to next week, unfortunately. And I'm just going to add the delay like this. It's visualized. The slab is visualized also. We have a delay here. And we have a new task. And of course, if I don't want to document the delay, I just want to replan, it's also super easy, right? I can just move around tasks, maybe put something on Saturday because we're going to be more pushing towards the weekend. So very, very easy to use, very easy to work with. And since we have this BIM component in the back, I can even add a lot of additional information here under settings, for example. I'm really interested in the quantity that we also have to do. So I can just activate the quantity as additional information and keep this posted in mind that Ollie just showed, right? That had this information that today you have to write on manually on each post-it every day, over and over again, right? We have all the information here. It comes from your work preparation, it comes from the model, and it just makes life a lot easier for people on site. So now I know the concrete pouring on Monday is going to be about 45 cubic meters.
Talking about information, and sorry to interrupt here, but there's a question from Nina asking, where does the software get the construction management data? Not sure if I understood correctly, but I'd say it's basically two information that we need with Spectre. And the first one is a 3D model, IFC standard, also as discussed in the thread already. So we are adhering to Open BIM standards here. Yeah, and basically every 3D model from IFC is working. And then secondly, what we like to have, it's not a necessity, but we like to have also like a baseline schedule. And we haven't touched this component yet, so stay tuned. But yes, it works with MS Project. We could also import this, connect the model to the schedule, have our baseline schedule, and then you can do the short-term interval planning as Manu just demonstrated.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that actually right now. In general, also, if you're wondering, like, where do I get those tasks here from? Laying a line, reinforced concrete. Some customers put like final takeoff inspection, right? You can customize kind of your workflows, your standard processes in Spectre as part of our work preparation. And this whole work preparation topic in Spectre is something probably we could do an own session on, right? How can I define zones? How can I split elements? How can I create these workflows, right? That's the whole topic for itself. But if you're really thinking about the site and the end user, they already have ideally a good setup and can just easily go ahead. And that's actually a perfect topic you mentioned, right? Regarding schedule, I saw that in the chat as well. Beside your 3D model, you can also upload a schedule, like a Primavera schedule, a Synchro 4D connected schedule, MS Project, MPP, basically anything that's a schedule. You can upload in Spectre natively or via CSV or Excel export. And the good thing is I can also directly activate it. So up here, we have our schedule component. And everything is connected. That's an important thing about Spectre. Everything talks together, everything flows in a very, very natural and easy way. So the slab that I planned up here just a second ago, we will also be able to find it somewhere here in the schedule, right? While I'm hovering here in the schedule, you can also see it's connected with the model. You can create that connection in Spectre if you want to. You can also create it in a different tool, but that's all possible. And we can see right now we were in house A1, fourth floor here. And I think over here, we can actually see this blue bar. That is the slab that we actually planned together. To show you or to prove this to you, I can double click it so you can see also the same colors. And you can see if I now start just to move my plan around, let's say, we want to move things by a week, just pushing it over 1 week. Watch how my plan actually directly reflects back to my schedule. So, right, if we move those tasks 1 week back, likely we're overall going to be, 1 week later. And also our predicted final end date, which is predicted by Spectre for you, will also be obviously later, right? So it's very, very cool to see and super intuitive how those components link and how your short-term interval planning actually vertically integrates back into your master schedule, which can save tons of hours for people who otherwise go manually into looking in your short term, trying to pull that back to your master schedule, and this just takes away that hassle for many people.
So
perfect. So now we have our short-term plan done. We have understood how it relates to our master schedule as well. We have shown how we can track progress. What else can I do to simplify and make my life easier on site if I use this data-driven approach? Well, one thing that's really handy is when I do planning and tracking, I obviously also get a lot of documentation, right? I have very transparent, very clear documentation of what had happened. So maybe if I go back a couple of weeks to a week where we have, done some more planning, or maybe here in the past where already a lot of stuff is done, I can actually, for example, generate many types of different reports and analysis. Starting, for example, with a daily site report. This is something that's very common in Europe, right? Every day you want to write a report. You need to document your weather. You need to document the trades that were on site, how many people we had, right? The activities on site, maybe specific incidents, visits, images, and all of this can directly be done just by a push of a button. And the nice thing is, most of this daily report can automatically be taken from your short-term plan, right? Because it's the same information. So you don't have to document again. you can just take that existing plan, it gets transported to your daily log, and then I can go in and edit, maybe add a comment, write important issue, maybe change the number of staff we had for the masonry work. It were 6 people. Maybe here add an important image that I want to see, right? For example, here we have our webinar invitation, very important document. So definitely want to get that connected. And the nice thing is everything is connected, right? So this image I uploaded right here, I can decide that it will also automatically now be assigned to all the elements in the model that were planned on that specific day. So that when in the model, I actually click on a specific slab, and a couple of weeks back, I had documented an image on that site, I will automatically see that and will see, okay, I have here a final takeoff image for a specific pillar, for the slab, and I can directly view it, saving a lot of time and hassle in documentation and making just accessing information a lot more natural by just using the 3D model instead of, hunting through huge older structures and trying to find stuff. In Spectre, everything is right here directly under our files components. You can see all the images, all the documents, and directly access them and see how they connect to your model. Super, super easy again. And this flexibility actually allows you to also build your own ideas, right? We have some superintendents, site managers who started, connecting email notifications to their 3D model because it helps them find it again. It helps them keep transparency. If you add deliveries in Spectre, right, it's also something that is nicely visualized. Anything we do here, we can visualize, right? So for example, also the day's work, I can just go in, say, show me what's happening today, and you will directly see, right? For example, let's take the slab we were planning on the 17th. So we can see we started with mounting the prefab. Then the next day we have mounting and reinforcement, exactly what we planned here just together before. There we are. And I can just go through day by day and see exactly how this develops. Finally on Friday, we have our concrete pouring. And of course, once you have more planned, it becomes even more powerful. And you can see if I go a couple of weeks back, you just understand exactly what's happening. And if I take this even one step further, and there's 2 really exciting use cases to this. One is kind of from the work preparation side, right? I can do a lot of planning and a lot of visual planning in Spectre and show it to people already up front to a project if I'm not sticking only to a less planner methodology, but even want to do some simulation work, for example, or just retrospectively, right? I can understand what has happened in Spectre, what was happened in the short-term planning, and just visualize the past, also for the project owner, for documentations, for discussion, right? Any owner you're going to show this, he will or she will have a way better understanding and will be so much more pleased by just visually looking at what is happening and understanding from this discussion instead of trying to fight through this huge schedule or some images of post-its, right? This is just a lot more natural. And for that, for example, we can activate like a simulation visualization that just shows you exactly, on which day. Maybe let's go back a couple of weeks here to the start. We can even hit this play button and just enjoy, take a seat back and understand, hey, what has actually happened on site? What's going on? Have this whole documentation. It just shows you the power of having this structured approach towards something that you already do today, right? It just makes it easier, faster, but more standardized as well.
Easier, faster, and more standardized. Also a good transition. Picking up the questions maybe from below first. Nina's asking, has the software been tested for training with site personnel and trades for bi-weekly use? And how easy was it for them to adapt to this? Since you're a customer success, I guess it's a perfect question for you.
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, as Ollie said, we've done, I think, almost already 200 projects, more than that. And in the different types of projects is very different how the site people use it, right? So you have either maybe there's one person who is like the kind of the driver and is the one who's coordinating the software, putting the inputs and keeping the track on that. And for them, it's of course, it depends user by user, but we've developed the tool specifically also for foremen, for people who are not digitally native, right? And also for them, it's very easy. You just click on the area you want to plan, you do your plan, you track, and that's it. And so for people that have some digital experience, it's very easy to get into. If it's less, right, it can take a bit of time, right? Like any digital tool, anything that's new. But for this, we have a very dedicated customer support and success team who actually at the beginning of a project take the first 5-6 weeks to really have a regular check-in with the customer, do regular training to make sure they need exactly their needs on the project. Because that's exciting as well. Every project is very different and they plan in a different way. And it's super helpful for them if you can show them, hey, that's exactly how you're currently doing. That's how you can do it in Spectre in a similar but better way. We show you how this works, and then they can just go with it. So experiences with that was good, very good so far. But of course, you always have some cases, especially people who are not open towards change, who are not open to, using something new. You will not convince those people with any digital tool, likely, right? In those cases, the only thing that helps is to have a standardized approach that is kind of pushed down and that is set as a standard. Then it always works, right? Because once you have a clear deliverable, right? We want to have this KPI, we want to have this report at the end of each week, then it always works. And the software is easy enough that it works for everybody. But just having people go with it, if they don't want to and they're not open to this, that will not work in any case.
Exactly. Quick, like follow-up, more or less, how many people can use the software at the same time?
Yeah, so there's no specific limit on that. You can see up here we have live synchronization, right? Meaning whatever you do, it may take 1 or 2 seconds. But if somebody else was planning something right now in Spectre, it would just pop up for me. It was maybe 1 or 2 seconds delay, and we can basically do everything at the same time. So there's no specific limit on that. If it comes to more sophisticated operations, like for example, in Spectre, you can also split objects. Like maybe at the beginning, I realized these slabs are too large. I need to split them into sections, right? This becomes very easy in Spectre. You just do it with like 2 clicks. Things like that, you cannot do in parallel, right? This is something you should do in your work preparation phase ideally, or have one dedicated person who does that on the flow, who is the main responsible person for Spectre. But otherwise, this collaborative approach is very easy. Also, if you use like touch screens, for example, you have a big screen that's touch enabled, or you use an iPad, I highly recommend using it actually on that. And it's just super nice to pull around your post-its on the screen, edit stuff, add stuff. That's very, very easy as well.
So follow-up is already live. So say for a live LPS session and 6 trades are adjusting the schedule at the same time, can it handle the adjustments?
So in theory, yes. The only thing that's going to be potentially an issue there is that right now we not yet have very sophisticated rights management. So currently we just have a couple of different rights. You can read, write, manage, things like that. But right now we cannot yet specify only specific trades to only edit very specific tasks. This is something that we're currently working on, and that will probably come out very soon. And once this is there, then everybody can collaboratively plan, do whatever they want. Right now, you might run into issues if some trades not only stick to their task, but actually start looking at other tasks and planning other tasks. Of course, you can manage that with views and filters, right? You can create custom views for specific trades, filters for specific trades. So there's many ways to do this, but you might need to work around the rights management in Spectre.
Mm-hmm. And then you already showed splitting of objects in Spectre. There's always also the question from Danilo, in case the IFC data isn't accurate, is it possible to edit it on Spectre? It depends, right? There's some information we can, other we can't.
Yeah. So actually, like at the beginning, right, 4.5 years ago, this was a big challenge, right? Models and data, I'd say 90% of the case are terrible. Like the BIM data we use, most of the project are no BIM projects. We often use the structural engineering models. So we actually build a lot of functionality that helps you work really perfectly with terrible data. And because the use case you're typically looking at is like your lean, right? Your short-term planning, and it's not relevant that everything is perfect in the model, right? Or that you have super detailed attributes, or that the screw is modeled in the model. It's not relevant. Often we just abstract back to a whole space level, and just plan based on space, based on zones. So in Spectre, we enabled things like creating your own zones, changing the structure of the model, changing names, splitting slabs, grouping slabs, changing attributes of groups, and connecting different types of properties and therefore elements with different type of work steps. So there's a lot of power behind our work preparation. And that's why I would also recommend maybe reaching out to me and having a talk if you're curious about all that magic that can happen before a project to make the life on site for the people, just super, super easy. Because if that doesn't happen right, then the site people need to think about this work preparation things, which also works and is also very valuable for them. But it requires some effort.
Wow. There's 2 tasks for the software, so I give you the time to put it up back again. In the meantime, I'm gonna just answer another question. Is there any machine learning or predictive analytics built into the platform to learn from past data and forecast delays, bottlenecks, or cost overruns? And if so, how accurate are those predictions based on past data? The simple answer is no, not yet. Yeah, we are gathering a lot of data. Probably one of the most structured databases on construction processes for our customers to learn from that data. So you can export that data. You have complete access. It's your data at the end of the project, right? And yeah, we use like some simplistic algorithms to predict like the schedule forecast that Emmanuel was showing before. But I wouldn't call it like sophisticated machine learning. That's yet to come. But there's a lot of things coming in the near future in that regard. So for the moment, we gather the data for you. You can do whatever you want. It's your data. And we just predict the schedule. But it's a rather, let's say, simplistic algorithm and not some super sophisticated AI. So, and then for the 2 remaining questions, in case of a delayed task, what happens to the linked tasks? Do the dates change for all the linked / subtasks?
Yeah. So basically, if you add a delay, you are in the driver's seat and you decide which tasks you also want to delay, yes or no. You do this typically on the fly. So the easiest way is just selecting the post-it note, selecting the task you want to delay as well. There are many mechanics to do this very easily, but basically you decide what you want to delay and what not right now in Spectre.
So, yeah. And last but not least, any option for drawings overlay with the model?
Yeah, so that's also a really good question. So in Spectre, besides uploading models, schedules, there's actually a lot of additional data you can upload, right? And that's kind of the vision we have at some point, to be able just to upload everything and then get the most out of it. And one additional component is, for example, drawings, right? So you can see we have this drawings button, and I can directly upload and overlay drawings with the model right here, right? So I can see exactly what's in the details, but I have my model, and this becomes very powerful if you combine this with your colorings, right? With your progress status, for example, right? So I can see in a specific day, okay, this is exactly what needs to happen. And where this really comes in handy is if you want to print stuff out for your subcontractors, for example. So one very powerful component in Spectre, right, after doing your planning, getting your documentation, is the communication of all of that. And for this, we have, for example, our reports component, where you can build your very own custom reports. And I'm just going to take one of our templates and say, right, we want a report that visualizes in 2D my short-term plan for the next maybe 1 or 2 weeks, so that I can print it out, hand it out to everybody, and no matter which question you speak, everybody understands what needs to happen by whom. So I'm just going to select here my 2D daily task, and maybe we're going to pick a couple more days. Let's say five days here. I'm going to click refresh. And now since I picked 5 days and we have tasks ongoing in multiple stories, it's going to create a bunch of these visualizations for me. And you can see now, for example, here on the 16th of September, we have formwork mounting happening in this concrete walls here in the middle. We have, here the slab is being mounted, concrete and reinforced. So apparently 3 tasks on this specific day. Maybe you want to reconsider if that's really, functioning, or discuss with your trades. This is very useful, especially in interior construction. If you have many, many trades and you just see in one area, we have 5 traces at the same time, visualized here in Spectre very, very easily, then you can nicely coordinate this. And for this printout, right, what's also very handy, I can even combine this with the PDF drawing that we uploaded. So if I click this check mark, add the PDF, it will now not only visualize the model in 2D with the color, but it will actually visualize my PDF drawing with the color. So you can see here that you have the drawing right in the background here, right? If you make this larger and print it, it becomes even clearer. But you can basically natively integrate your drawings with your planning in the model and bring it back to kind of square zero, where people just really feel comfortable. They know their drawings, they know what's happening, and you never need to leave Spectre for that. Even can, make some edits, add information, whatever, and really use it to drive points home and to get everybody on the same page. And all of this is safe, documented, so you can always access it very easily. So that was a small detour, but I hope that it answered your question. I felt like it fits in well right here.
Yeah, at least we're getting good feedback for that. Seems the PDF option is useful. Thank you for that. Yeah, there are 2 like super detailed question from Nina regarding like versioning and also like the overlay. I think if that's of interest, let's maybe schedule like a quick one-on-one after our meeting to go into your details. But thanks so much for being so active. And I'd say we are at 45 minutes more or less. Was there anything you wanted to show from the demo we haven't touched upon yet?
I think we ran through most of these things that are exciting, especially in the context of Lean and BIM. Maybe one final thing I want to point out is like all the data we capture, right? You do your structure planning, look at planning, and it's not just typing stuff in manually. So you just capture a lot of information. Maybe you can see then, for example, like the progress that you have per slab, in which floor you can do a delay analysis, and all those things. And all of these dashboards, kind of like a built-in Power BI, can also be pushed into your reports, right? So you can just generate really, really powerful reports for your monthly owner meeting, for your team meetings, just by the click of a button. That can be very, very helpful. But I think we showed you way too much on the software today. So anybody who thinks, okay, that looks exciting, could be interesting, yeah, please feel free to reach out, and I think then it's up to more discussions.
All right. Okay. No, sounds good. Then last question from my end would be, would you recommend this webinar to like a colleague of yours? And of course, Manu and myself have a bit of more time. So if you happen to have any more particularly detailed question, feel free to maybe just stay in or reach out to us anytime to schedule a follow-up. And besides that, I'd say thanks so much for joining. Well, it was a blast having our first webinar in English, actually. And yeah, hope we see each other soon, and have a good day.
Thanks a lot.